Right, we are here. Good morning, everybody. We're giving everybody some time to join us and log in. We're both here on Zoom and on Facebook. So welcome, everybody. Today's webinar is supporting your students' mental health. And so please join us. It promises to be very interesting. So we're giving people some time to join us both here on Zoom and live on Facebook. So just a few more minutes and we'll get started. And welcome Dr. Stowe, who will be our presenter today. So we're glad to have you and to have you partner with us today in such an important topic. Again, we're letting families join us both here on Zoom and live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. We'll start in a few minutes. All right. Well, I think we're ready. We're still getting more people to join us, but welcome everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping items. This morning's webinar is supporting your students' mental health, and we have Dr. Angela Stowe with us today. She will be talking to you about this very important topic, an interesting topic. A couple of housekeeping items. Remember, this is going live on Facebook, and you're welcome to see it later or again if you would like. We'll be posting this on our website, uab.edu/families, for you to see it. It'll be under communications under the 2023 webinar. So at any time you can go back and look at the webinar or the previous webinars that we've already had. So we've had webinars from Tech Connect, financial services, One Stop, student disabilities, student involvement, VMAS and tutoring services, Colette School of Business. And so we have those webinars. And then coming up tomorrow, we have a webinar from Wellness Promotion. Then on Friday, we have two webinars, UAB Transportation Services and UAB Recreation. So again, welcome everybody. Feel free to send us your questions in the Q&A section at any point. We will be getting to those at the end of the presentation. And then again, welcome everybody. So welcome this morning, Dr. Stowe, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Carmen. And I echo my welcome to everyone. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to share some strategies and tips with you all about how to support your students' mental health. My guess is you wouldn't have hopped on this webinar, or you wouldn't be viewing it if this wasn't something that you found important and that you care and love your student and want to see them have the best experience, but you also are aware that mental health might be a concern. So I'm going to give you some information and strategies today about how you can connect with your student, but also how you can connect your student with some important resources that we have available on campus. So we'll just jump right in with some strategies. The first thing to say, and maybe the number one thing, is to practice honest and strategic communication. And these two pieces are really important as they are transitioning, especially if we're talking about like first-year students, even second-year students, and all through the college experience for many of our students, they are transitioning into adulthood. They don't automatically graduate from high school and start the college experience and have the skills of adulthood. It takes a long time to learn those skills, and they really come through experience. And so as you are watching and witnessing your student practice and learn how to make that transition, practicing very honest and strategic communication is important. Some families will think about when to communicate. Is this something that we do just kind of on an ongoing as needed basis? Or are you a family that may not communicate as much? And so you set a regular time, maybe it's Sunday afternoons or it's Thursday evenings, that it's a time that you make sure you have an intentional connection with your student. One of the things that can be helpful, especially when classes are not in session, so maybe during the summer, like right now, as they're preparing for the fall, and especially if this is a first-year student or even kind of early in the career, is to help them anticipate what stressors there might be. Now, this can be really tricky because most students are excited or maybe looking forward to the experience. They anticipate that things are going to be fine. So they don't necessarily set out planning on having a struggle with their mental health, for example. So one thing that parents can do and families can do is just say, you know what, you're going to have a mixed bag of experiences. And hopefully they'll all be pretty positive. Yes, you'll have a lot of stress, likely related to your academics. And just overall and in general, college can be stressful. Here's some of the stressors that you might experience. For example, meeting and making new friends. Maybe they're living with people that they've never lived with before. One of the biggest things that we hear from our students across the board, whatever level they are, even on our graduate students, is about time management and about life balance. And so they have demands on them from all kinds of places, all kinds of commitments, expectations, and people. And so figuring out how to best manage their time and learning how to use a schedule or a calendar, that's one of the things that can be really stressful and overwhelming. So just naming some of these things and recognizing that, hey, look, if you feel stressed or overwhelmed, that's pretty normal. The important thing is that they know how to manage that. How to give space to them, but also being supportive is a challenge. As a family member, your relationship with your student is changing as well. And so you're having to kind of navigate what that new normal is going to be. And so giving them space to figure things out, to do things independently, to do some things on their own, but also providing support and also being there and them knowing that you're supportive can be a hard balance to strike. And so it can take some trial and error sometimes. And sometimes you can just say, hey, I know we're in this kind of phase of our lives where our relationship is changing. I want to give you space. And I also want you to know I'm here for support and we're going to figure this out together. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but another piece of the honest communication and strategic communication is if you recognize things that are different or concern you, to point those out in a loving and caring way, but to let them know that you notice some changes. I noticed some changes in how often you've been reaching out or how often we talk, or I noticed some changes in how you're taking care of yourself lately, or I noticed some changes in how you're talking to me, or I noticed some changes in your relationships, whatever those might be. Want to check in and make sure things are okay. So just being open and transparent will allow that pathway to be open between you and your student. I think one of the big things that can be helpful is discussing realistic expectations. Now, expectations come from everywhere. So we know that your student has expectations of themselves. You have expectation of your student and of the experience. There are expectations that are put on them maybe just on culture and society, or it could be other factors in your life based on where you're from and who your people are and what your experiences are. And so thinking about how to manage those expectations can go a long way in helping someone think about their mental health and having the most positive mental health experience. So letting them know that here are the expectations that we have for you. You know, what are those and what is realistic? And in that conversation, talking about what happens with mistakes or failure. I'll say a lot of our students set super, super high expectations for themselves. Sometimes that is coming from themselves. Sometimes they feel that expectation coming from parents. Sometimes it's from the university. And then when they fail or they have a perception of failure, a lot of times for our first year and first semester students, it's that first test, those first grades they get back, and they're not what they thought they would be. And they can have a real sinking spell and feel very low and sometimes hopeless, like they're disappointing family or they're disappointing themselves or they're not going to reach their goals. And so being able to anticipate that and just say, hey, you know, your first semester, you might not have some grades that are like exactly what you expect. We want you to work hard and we want you to be successful. And if you mess up, we want you to talk about it. We want to be able to be open about that we grow from mistakes. That's the growth mindset, that mistakes and failure, they aren't the be all end all themselves. They don't define us, but it's how we manage those and how we come out of those. And so giving them an opportunity to be kind to themselves, to have some flexibility, and to set some realistic expectations. Some of the things that we see that expectations may not match up, where it could become a challenge for students, really is in the area of meeting and making friends and connection. I think a lot of people, whether it's through movies or TV or media, or it's parents who went to college that are reliving or rethinking about their own college days. College is this great, amazing experience. You meet your friends for life. You find out who you are, and you have this amazing time. And that's not the case for everybody. And really, it's usually not the case in just those first couple of months. But we have students who think if they haven't met their best friend for life, or they don't have this huge social life, academic successes, connections with the university, recognition and accomplishments within the first semester, they're a failure. And that's so not true. It takes time. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to make connections. You can start doing it right away, but you may not feel the payoff for all of your hard work right away. So setting some of those realistic expectations, asking them to be patient with themselves and kind to themselves can be important. Providing emotional support and modeling healthy coping skills. So I've said a few times already, it's maybe not so much that they don't fail or that they don't make mistakes. It's really more how they cope with it. And so a role of a family member can be really important in providing emotional support. You don't need to fix the problem. In fact, you're going to maybe help your student more if you provide them the freedom and space to feel their emotions, to regroup and problem solve, and to try new strategies. That can build self-esteem, that builds self-efficacy, that builds confidence, that lets them know they have the ability to cope. Teaching resiliency skills, teaching them how they get back in the game, teaching them how they, yes, you can honor and accept and name and acknowledge a disappointment or something that didn't go the way you want, or that things aren't happening the way that you expected. And you also then need to learn how to manage and cope with that. And that's where family members can be helpful. Sharing your own experience, your times in your life, maybe especially in college, if you went to college, and if you didn't go to college, times in your life when things didn't go the way that you hoped or you planned, or maybe you failed. And what did you do to move forward? What did you do to get unstuck? How did you make that happen in your life? That's very important. Some of the skills that are important: independent living, knowing how to, manage their time, knowing how to manage their responsibilities if they are, living in their own space for the first time, and what that looks like, making decisions about safety and thinking through different decisions that they may make, stress management, time management, as we've said, and really how to build relationships. Are they comfortable meeting new people? How do they have those conversations? Where do they go to meet new people? What that might look like, and giving them an opportunity to really think through and develop some skills that can be healthy coping skills while you're providing them that support and love. Proactively looking for warning signs is also really important. And there are so many different types of behaviors or thinking or feeling that people can experience that can be signs of a mental health concern. And I want to kind of tease out that there's a continuum of what mental health concerns is. Mental health in and of itself is, we've got positive mental health, which means we're thriving and we're doing the things that we want to do in a way that we feel good about, and that life is manageable and doable. More negative mental health or mental health concerns would be that life may be more difficult, or there's more challenges with how we're coping with things, that the circumstances going on in life and what you're going through are more difficult than what you're prepared to to cope with. So that can be mental health concerns. And then we also have mental health disorders or mental illness. And those can be conditions that really do get in the way of someone being able to go through, basic life functions or be able to hold a job or go to class. And that usually will require medication or treatment and can be more difficult to manage. And so we've got a whole continuum of ways that mental health can be impacted, and it's important to be paying attention to those. We know that over 25% of students that enter college have had experience with a mental health condition, like a diagnosable mental health condition. We know that over 50% of college students, by the time they finish their career, are going to have some kind of mental health experience. So pay attention to signs. Any changes in behavior, changes in how their mood is, emotional outbursts, and how they manage themselves. If they are more withdrawn and then you're used to them being engaged, their sleeping habits are changing, their eating habits are changing. And sometimes this can be really hard to notice because everything may be changing anyway. And so you may not have as much of a baseline to know, well, is the sleep really different? Yeah, it's different from when they're at home, but now they're in college and they have a different kind of schedule. Making sure that they do think about their eating routine, for example. Are they able to get the food that they need? Are they having time in their day and making time in their day to prepare their meals or go get the meals that are nourishing them? Do they have good sleep hygiene and good sleep habits? Do they understand how much sleep that they need and the impact of not having that sleep on them? We know that substance use can also contribute to mental health concerns, and it can be a way of escaping or coping when things are difficult and they may not have other coping strategies. So paying attention to use, especially if use becomes to change kind of their ability to manage their lives. And then feeling hopeless, feeling guilty or worthless, feeling anxious or worried or depressed or unhappy. Now, any of these things in and of themselves, on a given time period, doesn't mean that somebody has a mental health disorder. It could mean that they're having a bad day and you want to check in on them, but that they're going to cope and they're going to get through. They still need support. They still need resources. They're still having challenges, but with support, with encouragement, with some time, maybe some sleep and a good meal and the connection with an important loved one, they'll be able to bounce back and feel better. What to pay attention to is if there are multiple things going on that you're noticing, and if it persists over time. Going several weeks and still feeling depressed or unhappy, or you're noticing that they're on edge all of the time and there really is just this constant sense of agitation, then yeah, it's probably time to do even more of a check-in to make sure that there might not be something else going on. So making sure to pay attention to those warning signs and symptoms. And if you're noticing something, do a little research on that and see what you might learn, if it's depression or anxiety or something else. I will say that the top concerns that we see in student counseling services are pretty consistent over time. Anxiety is definitely at the top of the list. Stress. And for most of the students that we see, this won't surprise you, their stress and anxiety is connected to academics. So right now, over the summer, for example, we still have a lot of students that are seeking support, but the level of stress that they're experiencing is different and lower than it is during the academic year because they're not either taking as many classes and the pressure just isn't as intense as it is during the fall and spring semesters. We also see students with depression. We work with students a lot on different relationship concerns. Sometimes that's family of origin. A lot of times it's friendships, roommates, significant others, managing conflict. They're feeling lonely and they want more relationships. So helping them build that social network of theirs. We do see a lot of students that have experienced trauma, and that can be childhood trauma, something that may have happened to them before they get to college, but it also might be something that's happened more recently. And so we'll work with them so that they can be able to cope with that trauma and be able to be successful in school. Certainly transition issues and changes in life, financial stress is huge, all of the things on this list. Prolonged stress and anxiety, if they've experienced it over a period of time. Some people experience just anxiety as a baseline for their lives, and they have to learn how to manage that. They have it anyway. Social anxiety for a lot of our students, and I'll say, I think this is one of the big things we've noticed since COVID, when students were so isolated for a while, that they have now really developed a sense of social anxiety. And that shows up in just feeling comfortable and being in situations that are unfamiliar, knowing how to introduce themselves to someone and engaging in a conversation. We see the phones a lot of times used as a way to protect them. So we'll have students say, yeah, I walk around and I look at my phone so that people won't talk to me. And so teaching them how to be more comfortable in situations where they're meeting new people, or they're having to be more vulnerable and having a conversation and getting to know other people and making those connections. And so that can show up that way. It also shows up in the classroom, students that are afraid to speak up in class, or they have hesitation to speaking to a faculty member and asking questions. So we work with students on that. When students are burned out, we can see a lack of motivation or exhaustion. And so we'll help with them on that as well. And we're still noticing more impacts of COVID, kind of changes in future thinking. Now there's this sense that unpredictable things can happen without, us having a clue that they could and change life entirely. That really wasn't part of their experience prior to COVID. And so now there's always this caution. Maybe there's always a sense of, I need to make sure I have enough toilet paper because I don't want to run out. We didn't think about that before. So COVID, we're still noticing different impacts. We're noticing students aren't out and about as much as they were, where they might always be out in the student center or on the green or headed to the rec center. They have more of a tendency to go back to their room. And so we're really working on ways to help students draw out, and hope that you can help do that too. So wanted you to know a lot of the things that we'll see students for, and how their different mental health concerns might show up. As far as talking to your student, I want to provide some tips. And these are just some things that you already know, but it's helpful to just remember a framework for how to talk to somebody. Obviously, respect really, really is important. And there is a lot of stigma around mental health concerns. I've seen a lot of stigma around mental health concerns and students sharing that with family members. They don't want to worry their parents. They don't want to worry family members. That's a big, big piece of it. They don't want to burden family members. They don't want family members to think they're not okay and that they aren't able to handle whatever's going on. So respect is really important. And the respect can be an assumption that, hey, I know, I trust you, and I know that you're doing the best that you can. And I want to just share an observation that I've had and want to check in on you. So making sure that when you do approach them, it's not in a way that assumes, or sounds like they're doing something wrong. Students are really sensitive to that. And what we've learned is parents really want to hear about what's going on, and students are the ones that are really more holding on to that stigma or holding on to that fear. Curiosity is a great quality to bring to a conversation that could be more difficult. It's just, hey, I'm curious. And open-ended questions are a great way to do that. Oh, tell me a little bit about how this class is going. Or, hey, I remember when I moved to a new town, it was really hard for me to meet friends. It took me, 6 months before I really had some people that I knew. How's that going for you? So being curious and using that as a way to check in and get them to tell you more about what's going on. I think a really big one and a hard one it can be hard, is accept your students as they are. This can be hard because as parents, and I put myself in this category, and as a family member and as a friend even, we want to give advice or we want to fix it because we've been there. And for our students, they really want to find their own way. So if you want them to talk to you, advice is probably the last thing to give, but acceptance of, you know what, sounds like you're figuring it out. They may not manage their choices to sleep or connect with friends or study or make decisions the way that you think they should. And sometimes you need a conversation about that. But when you're really wanting them to open up and to tell you how they are, letting them figure it out, giving them space to have their emotions. Well, you shouldn't be upset about that. Well, they may be. So I could see, another way to reframe that is, I could see where you're upset about that. That didn't work out the way that you thought. How can I be supportive of you? Or that's just really hard. And stop it at that. Instead of moving to advice, which is where we tend to, as humans, want to go in a helpful way. It's meant to be helpful. It's just not always received as helpful and can actually shut someone down. I think what's also really important is giving hope. Hope that you believe in them. Give them hope that they have your support and love all the time. Give them hope that whatever they're going through, there's help for them. There's resources for them. There are options for them. There are ways out, and the challenge is for them to figure out what they need and what they need to do. And usually they know what they need to do. They may just need help being able to find that in themselves or admit that or do that, and need permission to do the things that they need to do. But hope is really important, and it's not hard to provide that affirmation, but we don't always remember to do that. So just think about that when you're talking with your student. Compassion is huge. We all need compassion. Our world needs more compassion. I offer you just the thoughts of being kind to yourself as well. You have gotten your student to this point where they are independent adults that are, and hopefully independent, becoming independent adults, have gotten to college. They're coming to UAB, and you have done the best that you can. And so be kind to yourself and share that humanity with your student, that we're all human. We all are here doing the best that we can. And life can be hard sometimes. And that the whole gamut of human emotion is normal, and it happens to all of us. Everybody is afraid of something. Everybody loves something. Everyone has lost something. We've all had our challenges and our setbacks. And so how that human to human connection can really be helpful when you're navigating such changes in your relationships. When you notice yourself and you're feeling irritated or critical or judgmental or angry, I encourage you to pause yourself, because there's something that may be going on, and to be kind to yourself and to give yourself a minute to understand what may be going on. Sometimes that irritation can just be grief that you aren't as close to your student as you used to be, grief that you're not having those experiences with them and that they are on their own. It can be a mix of emotions where you're proud and you're sad and you're frustrated because they're not doing what you would hope that they would do. But they've got to do it their way. And so a lot can be going on, and it can come out in our own behavior. So just pay attention and be kind to yourself. You're going through a big transition as well. And educate yourself on the available resources. And so this is where I'm going to take a few minutes to give information to you so that you can know what's available here at UAB for your student. And should you want to share resources with your student about the different things available, then you know where to point them. This first one that I want to share with you is something that is just an awesome resource that was developed here within the last couple of years by UAB, and it's our UAB Well app. It is a mental health hub, all things mental health for our students in one place. Students designed what they wanted as part of this app. This is for everyone. It promotes mental health. So it's not if you're having a struggle only, it's if you want to develop a self-care plan so that you can be proactive and you can have a daily habit tracker and a journal, you can check off the things that you're doing. So it's how you're sleeping, how you're eating, how you're managing your time, what are your different ways to cope with stress. It also gives access to mental health resources if that's something that someone needs. We have a Finding Calm section that is just a fabulous library of mindfulness and meditation and videos and some yoga that people can use to just help manage their stress or just help promote more mindfulness and promote their mental health. This is a free app. It is available for everybody. In fact, you can download it yourself as a family member if it's something that you want to explore. And use, you can develop your own self-care plan, but then also explore it to show your student if that's something that you'd like to do. All the data and information is private. No information is shared with UAB. Nobody logs in. There's no way for us to track it. So it is something that they can use on their own. It's a great resource. We're super proud of it. We also have a program called Together All. This came from students asking for the opportunity to have 24/7 peer-to-peer connection. And so through Together All, it is like Discord. It's where they can have chats and be part of a community where they provide mental health support, but also encouragement. Sometimes students will go on there because they need help. Sometimes students will participate because they want to connect and help others. There's also courses on there and self-assessments and articles. And so students can learn a lot about managing their mental health too. But it's a wonderful community. It is anonymous and it is free for enrolled students. They can go on our website or scan and sign up through there and activate their account. TAO stands for Therapy Assistance Online, and this is like having a therapist in your pocket. There's an app as well as a computer version of this, and there are over 150 modules that are interactive using things like cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy to teach about managing your mental health. And so it can be learning positive thinking patterns. It can be learning relationship skills. It can be learning about trauma and the different ways to move through trauma and heal from trauma. It can be about managing conflict. There's things in there about substance use. So whatever somebody might need, there's some modules in there that are scientifically based that help students have a way to cope and learn the things that they need to learn to deal with all the variety of things that they're going through. This is also free and available for all UAB students. They just use their UAB email in order to register their account. We have a ton of online support. Our website at Student Counseling Services has the whole menu of options where they can find ways any time of day or night to just do their own self-help and learn what they want to learn and manage, just learn how to manage life's difficulties and cope with the stressors of life. For students that may have substance use concerns or maybe other addictions in their life that are getting in the way of them meeting their goals or causing them difficulties, then we have our collegiate recovery community that offers a space. This is a picture of our storefront that is, it's really not a store, but our space that's located near Highlands Hospital, and it's in a strip mall right next. It's not really a strip mall, but it's located in a shopping center, but it's between the Pita Stop and Subway, and it has a living room and a kitchen, and we've got a pool table and a meditation room. We've got staff there to support and assist students as well. For students who need additional help, who may be struggling and need professional support or referrals to professional support, we do have counseling appointments available as well. They're available distance and in person. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and services are free for enrolled students. Students can webbook through our website or the patient portal. They can use their app to access that as well, or they can come into our office and schedule that first appointment. This is a part of our UAB Cares campaign. Our UAB Cares is a suicide prevention campaign, but ultimately it's our effort to promote a campus where people know where they're cared for and where they can thrive and where they know they matter. They are important, and they are not alone. We have people here that will care for your student. We want to connect your student with what they need in order to be successful, and so that they can come here and they can achieve their goals and they can go out in the world and do great and wonderful things. Sometimes folks need a little additional support, and that's what we're here for. So I'm going to pause there. That's the information that I have, and I would love to open it up for any questions that folks may have.
Thank you so much. That is, I love the apps and the possibility for students and also family members to use some of those apps, and the importance of having that open communication. And as a parent myself, I know that sometimes is not as easy, especially when our students are transitioning to college. They want to be independent. We want to give them their time. But as family members, we also know our students quite well, so we can tell when something's a bit off. So these are wonderful resources that you have now. And we invite you to submit your questions through the Q&A section. Also, I see some people on Facebook. So if you have any questions, this is a wonderful time to reach out to Dr. Stowe and send your questions in. I think this is a rounded group of professionals that can help your students and can help you as family members also as you navigate this transition, which is an exciting time in our students' lives, but it's also, one of those moments where we're letting them go into a different world. And so we worry as family members. So if you have any questions, please submit them now. I do want to point to a moment when Dr. Stowe mentioned that we're having we have the collegiate recovery community here on campus, and we're also having a webinar by the collegiate recovery community on July 26th. I'm looking at my calendar. So we invite you to register for that as well. It is always useful to have as much information about the resources and to support the students as they navigate through the new transition. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and submit them now. I do have a question that as a family member, we were talking with somebody who came in earlier to one of our orientations, and it was just, how do we get the students to seek those resources when, we as a family member might know there's something, but then the student is kind of hesitant about reaching out to those resources? What can families do in those instances?
Oh, that is such a great question and a really hard one. What it makes me think of is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think that's the situation that sometimes family members find themselves in is, it's right there. These resources are right there for you. They're free. They're available. Why won't they just do it? And even wanting to do it for them, okay, so they'll schedule an appointment for them and just wanting to do everything they can to get their students to come. And so I think that can backfire. Sometimes the more we push, the more the students push back. I like to think about it as maybe they're not doing it right now, but it's still important that you plant that seed. It's still important that you let them know that there's no judgment if they do seek help. There's encouragement for them to use those resources and to talk to somebody. And when they're ready, sometimes when it gets bad enough, then they'll reach out. If they aren't interested in seeing a counselor, helping them just have a good friend that they can talk to, will they continue to check in with you? Are those some ways in the meantime that you can support them? And are they taking care of themselves? Are they sleeping? Are they eating? Are they doing the things that they need to do to progress in their classes? And just being there and loving them unconditionally, I think, is important. And then when they're ready, they'll go, or they may not go. And I think that's just part of the transition, is understanding that ultimately they may make their own decisions and we have to let them.
That is so true. That is so true. But that's why open communication, and maybe at some point the student is not talking as much as we would want them to as family members, but allowing them that space and knowing that you're always there to listen and then to help out when they seek that support. We do have a question, and it has to do with the collegiate recovery community. And it says, can you explain that in more detail? I didn't really understand what it was all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So the collegiate recovery community is part of student counseling services, and it is a program and a space and support. So we work with students who are actively recovering from substance use concerns, maybe even disorders, who are seeking, recovery support like sober activities, a space where they can meet. But that's not only the folks that we support in the collegiate recovery community. We're also looking at students who may be needing to explore their relationship with substances. Maybe they are looking for a healthier relationship with substances, and it may not even be substances. There are other things that someone may be finding themselves engaged with that are getting in the way. For example, we see students that might have eating disorders. We see students maybe with gaming addictions as well. And it's anything like that that might be preventing them from being successful or working through their really daily responsibilities. And so we're there to offer that support. We have programs like events and social events. We offer professional development workshops. We have a safe space where they can come and study. If they're in recovery and they're in a recovery program, they can meet with their sponsor. We have weekly meetings for students so that they can support each other as well. So that's a little more, information. And our website has more information on it as well.
And we also have that webinar again, just to remind you, on July 26th at 2:30. So if you would like to register to find out more about collegiate recovery, it's a great program that's on campus available for students, and it just provides that safe space, as Dr. Stowe mentioned. So, Dr. Stowe, if families had a concern, is there a way that they can reach out to health services to seek support for the student? I know there's a HIPAA and all those other. So what can a family member do in those situations?
That's a great question. There are definitely some limits because of HIPAA and FERPA. We have very strict confidentiality guidelines for us. But I have talked with several parents and family members, and I think, yes, family members can call. Now, family members aren't able to schedule an appointment for their student, but we do have the opportunity to consult with family members. So if you're worried about your student and you don't know what to do, then I've talked with family members about, all right, let's talk about what's going on. Let's talk about what you have done. Let's talk about other options about what you could do or what might be options for treatment or ways to get help. So that's one thing, we can consult with you. The other thing is that there's the opportunity to submit a student in distress form. And so that's on the Parent and Family Services website. You can submit a form, and that goes to what's called our care team. And if there is a student who you are really worried about and want to make sure the university has a chance to have eyes on and connect to resources, then you can submit that form. Anybody can, faculty, students submit that themselves as well. And it's just, sometimes we've had parents submit that when they know their student's missing a lot of class, when they know their student may be in a really difficult, challenging, problematic roommate situation when they're missing. So there's ways that they can help the university get eyes on them. So that form's on the Parent and Family Services website that you can fill out.
Thank you. We do have another question. It is, what is the time frame in scheduling appointments on the UAB app? And do students get in appointments in a reasonable time, or do they have to wait weeks?
Yeah, so students are able to get that initial appointment usually within a couple of days. Now, sometimes students want it at a specific time, so they have to work it in their schedule. It might be a little longer, but we have availabilities usually within 48 hours. During the busy times of the semester, it might be 3 or 4 days, but within a really short amount of time. We want to get students in as soon as possible at the point of help seeking so that they get help when they need it. And that's that first appointment where we'll talk with a student about what's going on and what they need, and then maybe place them with a counselor or connect them with other resources.
All right, so thank you, everybody. It seems like this topic is getting a great response as we knew it would. I think it's important for us as we end our meeting today, and before we, if we wait for another couple of questions, to remember that, you know, mental health is important, and taking care of ourselves and our students, as you mentioned, is really important. And we need to move away from that maybe stigma that there's something wrong if we seek help. Our humanity is important, like you mentioned before. We're all human beings. We all go through roller coasters of emotions, and knowing that there is support, and UAB has wonderful resources and support systems in place to help your students and help families. This is a journey that we're all embarking in together. And so it's really important that we communicate. And if you ever need anything, you can email us here at families@uab.edu. Is there a place where they can reach out to mental health services or to counseling, Dr. Stowe?
Sure. Calling our office or counseling, my goodness, excuse me, counseling@uab.edu. Or yeah, and counseling@uab.edu. That's our email address.
And I will post that counseling at uab.edu. And remember, our email addresses here at UAB are really easy to remember. It's like families@uab.edu and counseling@uab.edu. So feel free to, again, if you still have any questions, we have about 2 more minutes. But if we don't have any questions, let me go back and check Facebook, because I'm in both places. We don't seem to have any questions at this moment. But we want to thank everybody again for being here today during your lunch break. We hope that you had a time to eat and also enjoy the presentation. Please let us know if there's anything we can do. Like we said, this is a journey. We're all in this together. Our humanity is important. We are human beings, and we need to care for each other and seek support. And so if you ever have any questions, any doubts, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you haven't seen all the past webinars, you can still go back on Facebook and see those webinars. They're recorded and they're being posted on our website on a weekly basis. So this webinar is going to be on Facebook after we end, and then it will be on our website within the next week with captions. So thank you, Dr. Stowe. Any last words before we go?
I think you did a great recap. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thanks to everyone watching this, and wishing your students and you the best this summer and as you get ready for the fall to start.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here today, and we look forward to seeing you in future webinars. And thank you, Dr. Stowe, and have a great afternoon, everybody.